I'm here at Adaptive Textiles and I've got an order for 2 throw pillows that are a box style. And the order is for 20-inch wide, 12-inch tall, and a 2 1/4 inch box. Got a decision to make here because normally I think I would just cut a face, a back, and the boxing strip. But since we're working with this beautiful ticking stripe, I thought it might be a good idea to do a waterfall style, where the face fabric goes up, over the box, down the other side, and the boxing strip is really only on 3 sides because the box at the top is created by the fold over of the fabric. So I think that's how I'm going to handle it. So to get the cut dimensions, I've got 20-inch wide, so that's easy because I can just add my seam allowance and create a width of 21 inches wide. So 21 inches wide is my cut. And then as far as the length, I need to consider seam allowance at the bottom, need to consider the box at the top, down the other side, and seam allowance at the other side of the bottom. And so that would give me, if I do 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'd have a 1/2 inch plus 12 plus 2 1/4 plus another 12 plus just the bottom seam allowance, which would be another 1/2 inch. So that would give me 24, 25, 26, 27 1/4 would be my cut in this direction. Now for my boxing strips, I'm going to be using just 1 long strip that'll wrap the sides, the bottom, and up the other sides. And since I'm using an invisible zipper just on one edge of the boxing strip, I don't even need to piece it. It's kind of cool that it's a pinstripe because that means it will be running in the same direction up the sides. We won't have to pattern match the bottom, and then it'll also be running vertically up the other side. So the length of strip I need is really just enough to go up across the bottom and up the other side. So 12 plus 20 plus 12. But I don't usually do the math for that. I just cut a strip that's at least that long. So when I set my cut plan, I can cut 1 box pillow, another box pillow, and both of the boxing strips up the side. And that will really conserve a lot of fabric. You'll also notice that I serged all sides, and that's just to give me a nice edge that won't fray as I work with it, and also gives a finished edge for the invisible zipper that will be at the bottom. I'm making the inserts for these as well, so I'm going to just take one of the pieces and I'll cut a little bit outside because it's okay if the inserts are just slightly bigger, make sure they fill out. So I'll cut, no, not quite a 1/4 inch outside of my other cut. I'm cutting through 2 layers, so I only have to make 1 cut. Kind of nice because the inserts don't have to be perfect. They just have to be slightly, just a hair bigger than the cover to make sure they fill out. And then for the 2 boxing strips, since this is folded in half, there's 1. There's another. You know, I don't think I mentioned, but these boxing strips, these ones are cut at the 2 1/4 plus a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So they're cut at 3 1/4 inches wide. I measure on my grid, I can see that. Yeah, they're 1, 2, 3 1/4 inches wide. Okay, here we go. Again, the length of these strips doesn't matter. We'll lop off the extra once we sew the pillow. I think I'm ready to go to the machine. Now the first thing I'll do is put in the invisible zipper. And prior to that, it's helpful to have a few markings. So I'm going to note the center of the zipper side. So remember, this is a loop. The boxing strip will be at the bottom here. So I'm going to make a marking at the center bottom. And that's easy to do with just some folding and a very small notch cut. I'll do the same thing on the boxing strip, very small notch cut. And since I'm doing 2 pillows, I can do the same thing on all pieces. Even the fine cotton sateen that I'm using for the inserts. And that just notched through all 4 layers, both sides, and let's, one final piece would be these. Another marking I'll make will speed things up when we sew the boxing strip in, and it's easier to make it now, and that is the top. Basically, this is the absolute center that when this gets boxed out will be in that upper corner. That's super helpful as we're moving forward. So I'll make that notch, and then I'm also going to, with an invisible marking pen, mark the actual distance corner to corner of the box. And if you recall, the box was 2 1/4. So if I go 2 1/4 and split that in half, that's 1 1/8. So I'll put 1 1/8 right on the notch, and then make some nice dark markings with the erasable marking pen. And I'll do this on all tops. There's the notch. I'll center it at 1 1/8. Nice dark marking at the 0 and the 2 1/4. So that's centering the notch. So that one's ready to roll. So this is the zipper side, and this is the top boxing. And I'm just keeping these together just to mark them both at the same time. Okay, I'll start putting things together, get the rhythm with the insert. And I'll start center bottom. It's actually much easier if you put the boxing strip underneath rather than on top. So let me align up the 2 bottom notches underneath. And I'm going to put 1 pin in. This is where I'm going to end the stitch. And I'm going to start over here because I need to leave an opening to stuff the insert. 1/2 inch seam allowance, And I'll approach the corner, needle down, leave the boxing strip straight, and turn the top. That'll give me a nice sharp corner without fussing. 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm approaching the top of this waterfall cushion. This is a waterfall pillow, so this is the top. And there was my top center notch. But what's interesting is I need to turn here on these corners. So I'll make a almost 1/2 inch relief cut right on those markings. Get there, needle down, turn. This is the extra part of the boxing. Turn. I should make sure that this notch is in the center, right? It should be square center right here in the boxing. I head to the other corner and then turn. And 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I can also, as I approach the bottom corner, I can see where it should hit. Little notch there, so I know that would make a nice square corner. That way, as I approach, I can target my turn at that point. And I can see the notch below directly across from my 1/2 inch marking. That's my needle down position for my turn. And if everything, if the corner's turned correctly, these notches should come close to each other. So I'll make that work just by pulling on the boxing strip a little more tightly than the top, and that will allow me to get there. If you're way off at this point, you need to go back and rip out because likely there's something wrong with the prior corner. As long as those notches are lining up, you're good to go. Needle down at the 1/2 inch mark. Make the turn. And now I'm approaching the center top again on the other side with the two markings. I can make a nearly 1/2 inch relief cut so it can wrap that corner. So notch, corner, corner. As I approach that corner, needle down and turn. Making sure this notch is in the center. If it's not, you might have overshot or undershot that corner, but I'm feeling good about that. And approaching the next corner, needle down at the 1/2 inch mark, and turning the corner here. And before I start sewing, it's a good idea to make sure you're headed to another square corner. So I'm going to come down here, put a little notch at where I'd want it to turn, like essentially squaring up that. And this way I can lay this down, and if this notch is a 1/2 inch away from the bottom cut edge, I'm in great shape. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to head for that. Finger there, no pins. Just make your turn and head to the spot. And there we go. And if everything else went smoothly, then as I turn this corner, it should be just enough fabric to get to this pin that marked the start of the opening. And we are in great shape. Okay, let's see how it looks. There's a box cushion. The top flaps I can now trim off. That looks great. And then on this side, same thing, nice square corners. When that's stuffed, that'll pop out these box corners. Now with the covers, I need to start with the zipper. And I have my center notches, so they should line up with my center of the zipper, which I can mark right here. Then you need to switch to the zipper foot. Okay, that purple marking to the notch. Now, as always with invisible zippers, my first pass is just to worry about the tension. I'm not worried about getting close. Not worried about getting close to the teeth, although with this foot does kind of. And my second pass, I actually focus on the placement near the teeth. And I'll put the pull through, make sure there's no trouble. Looks good. That's gonna be great. And then the other side will be face down here, and all I have to worry about is that purple marking being in the center. So I don't have to fuss a lot with pinning or lining up or anything. That center marking tells me exactly where the zipper needs to go. That purple mark right there, aligning with the exact center notch that I already cut. So place it, guide my way to the top of the zipper, and start. And then as I approach, I'm worrying about the tension, make sure it doesn't slip on its way down there. See, I can grab here and grab there to create like an embroidery tension wheel. And I'm coming down. I'm going to stop before the corner. It's going to be a little bit easier. That's going to look great. Okay, for the second one, same routine. Purple marking at the notch. Now we're done with the invisible zipper foot, and I can put in the, whoops, I need the right zipper foot. I need the foot with the needle on the right side of the foot. I'm pleased with that one too. So let's pull it back to about the halfway point. Let's see. I want to be sewing with my boxing strip underneath. It's just easier that way to make all the turns. So I'll start on this side. And I'll pick it up where the zipper's not attached, which is all the way back here. And I'm going to be turning right at that 1/2 inch mark. Now I'm approaching my notch in my 2 purple marks. So I'll make my relief cuts not quite a 1/2 inch in. I don't want to overshoot my stitch, but there's my perfect corner. So when I get to this notch, I need to do the turn. So I'll continue with my 1/2 inch seam allowance, needle down right at that notch. And then make sure the boxing is square. This knot should fall right in the center of the boxing strip. So if it's not there, adjust one or the other. And good. Needle down at the other notch. Ah! Lost it. Let's try that again. Needle down just inside that other notch. This time I'll and if I want to make sure I'm going to make this bottom corner lined up correctly, I can find this corner, square it off, small notch there, and I know that as I head down to here, that should hit at that 1/2 inch corner. And it does perfectly. So all that pinning you might be doing usually doesn't help much. You can just mark things as you go with a box pillow, waterfall pillow like this. All right, and I love it that the boxing strip at the bottom does not have to pattern match because it's running the other direction. That makes things so much easier. I just need to make sure these notches line up and we'll adjust accordingly. Okay, here I am approaching the top box. Relief cut on the purple marks, less than a 1/2 inch in, just shy of a 1/2 inch. Lining up that center. And as I head to this corner, since this is all opened up, I think what I'm going to do is tidy up this zipper. Yeah, let me tidy up this zipper. Make that corner. I'm going to come at it at this side. Pull the zipper back. Should have thought of that before. I don't want that zipper to wrap around the corner. Even though it's in a seam, it'll be kind of bulky. So. That's a little better. can close this off. And I'll run this through the serger one more time, just to clean off that raw edge. And we have a cushion. I had to fix that up ahead of time so I don't have to come around and do it like I did on the last one. Stuffing these with a hypoallergenic microfiber gel, and it's actually a polyester fill that is just super fine, so it feels like down, and I love it. It's a great fill. And the other reason why I love it is when we do custom inserts like this, we have a bedding license, which allows us to put the new material in and then certify that it's all new material with our law labels. This is a Pennsylvania law and a federal law to certify that the materials are new. And we've got to use it anytime we're sewing an insert closed like this. Good. That's the underside, and then the top. Sweet. I love it. I'm pulling the seam allowance to the face. Normally I put it towards the boxing, but in these waterfall cushions, I think it tends to look better towards the face, especially in a knife edge pillow. Again, no right or wrong, it's just what you figure out works best. Oh, nice. I love these.